Hey everybody, Jason here. Welcome to my knot channel. In today's video, we're going to tie the most advanced ridgeline that there is. Okay, so maybe we're not going to tie the most advanced ridgeline that there is, but what I'm going to do in this video is go from very basic knots to more less known. I don't really feel like there are advanced knots. Maybe there are, but less known knots, less practiced knots. So I'm going to give options for people who are just starting out or for people who are already technically sound and might want to see a different way to tie a ridgeline. I'm also going to include chapter marks for this video so that you can skip ahead to different points. I'm going to show different ways to tie both anchors, the anchor and the tensioning point, and other accessory points. All right, let's get started now. So to begin, I'm going to show 5 different ways to tie off an anchor point for your ridgeline. This first method is probably the simplest, and we simply pass the rope around the anchor point, in this case the tree, and then tie a simple overhand knot followed by another half hitch. This makes a 2 half hitches knot. When you're finished tying your 2 half hitches, it should look something like this. It's also known as a clove hitch over itself. The second knot we're going to tie is basically the same as the first. We're tying a 2 half hitches, except the second half hitch we tie as a slippery half hitch, making this a quick release knot. For the next setup, we need to know how to tie a bowline. Once we have our bowline, again we pass it around the tree, and now this time we're going to use a stick as a toggle, and we simply pass the standing end through the loop of the bowline, and then pass our stick, our toggle, through the loop, and then snug up the rope nice and tight. This actually makes a fairly secure method to tie a ridgeline and can hold a reasonable amount of pressure on the line. Now, if we're going to tie a bowline, in my opinion, we might as well tie the next system, which is the running bowline. Tying a running bowline, we basically tie the running bowline around the standing part of the rope, and so that we don't have to pass the full length of the rope through the bowline after the knot has been tied. Our next option is the mooring hitch. Now, the mooring hitch is a quick release knot and very popular in sailing and boating as a mooring knot. And the mooring hitch is very popular amongst boaters, hence the name, and is used when temporarily docking your boat. Like the other quick release knots, it can be easily untied by simply pulling on the tail end. The last knot I'm going to show for the anchor side of the ridgeline is the Evenk knot, which is not so commonly known, but when it is, it's often known as the Russian knot. This is another quick release knot that is sometimes used amongst bushcrafters and is relatively easy to tie once you get the hang of it. So something I see from time to time is people are nervous that their quick release knot will come untied, that the slip will slip through. And typically people recommend finding a stick and placing the stick through the loop and snugging it up so that it's secure and won't slip through. Although this will work fine, my personal preference is to simply take the tail end of my rope and pass it through the loop. And again, similar with the stick, just snug it up and you can be assured the knot isn't going to go anywhere. The next stage of the ridgeline is tying off to the other side, the other anchor point, and adding some tension to the line. The easiest way I've found is to wrap the rope around the anchor, the tree, and then pass the rope over itself and then pull back to create tension. From there, you can simply tie another 2 half hitches knot or a slippery half hitch to secure it in place. But if you are going to use the slippery half hitch, then I'd recommend you back it up. And you can do that by just adding another half hitch on the ridgeline. For our next option, we're going to add a twist in the line to create a loop. And from there, we're going to fold our loop over onto our working part of our rope. This is exactly the same way as if we were going to tie a marlin spike hitch. We can now pass our working end around our anchor, our tree, and then through the loop we've created. And then pulling on the working end, we can create that tension that we want. Again, once we've reached the tension that we want on our line, we can tie off with a couple half hitches or a slippery half hitch. So now we have our ridgeline set up. Let's add some accessory tie-off points. First, I'm going to create a couple loops. And the easiest way to do that is to find a small piece of cordage, create a bight, and then tie an overhand knot in the end to form a small loop. Personally, my preferred method to tie these loops is to use the Fisherman's knot, seen here. Once we have our loops, we can tie them onto our ridgeline using the Prussik knot. It's a simple knot. Basically, we just wrap our loop within itself a couple times, making sure that the wraps don't cross over themselves. Once tied, we easily have a loop that we can add a carabiner to hang some gear off of. The nice thing about the Prussik is that it will slide up and down the ridgeline, but when we put some tension on the Prussik, friction is created within the wraps of the Prussik and the main ridgeline, which lock it in place. If you don't want to tie a loop, but would like to just have a single line hanging down to tie off gear, or to add a guy line to your ridgeline, you can use a single strand friction knot. The single strand friction knot will have the same use as a Prussik knot, and of course we can double it up and create another loop. A nice thing with the single strand friction knot is that it has a little bit more versatility. We can add multiple loops to the end of it, or even hang objects closer to the ground. We can also use it as a guy line. And of course we can double it up on the ridgeline to create another loop, similar to the Prussik. Okay, and so there you have it, the ridgeline, and a lot of different options on how to tie it. Now, if you want to see the most basic way, and probably the best way to tie a ridgeline, then check out this video. And if you want to see how I tie a quick deploy ridgeline and my opinion on them, then check out this video next. Anyway, thanks for watching.